When Lori Hugowind arrives at the University of Chicago hospitals, even doctors stop and stare.
In my mind, I was thinking, oh my God.
I don't recall anything of this enormity in textbooks or in my own experience or the experience of my teachers.
Lori's condition is so severe, it has taken nearly a year to find anyone to look at her difficult case.
I haven't seen a tumor of this magnitude before. It weighs more than she does.
Incredibly, a monstrous tumor has taken Lori's body prisoner.
I wasn't able to function. All those things that you do for yourself were getting harder and harder to do.
She probably doesn't have a long time to live if we do nothing.
Hello, I'm Dr. Steve Salvatore. Imagine living every day with a monster. Not a bad dream or a figure of your imagination, but something insidious growing inside you. Well, this is the real-life nightmare Lori Hugowind, the woman you're about to meet, lived with for years. No doctor could help her. Nothing could stop this monster. Until one day, Lori was offered a last desperate chance to save her life and make medical history. Her incredible story is true and can only be described as a super surgery.
Wyoming, Michigan. This attractive Midwest home is the starting point for one of the most amazing medical stories in history.
Why don't you sit over here by Mom a minute? Oh, here we go.
Hi, honey.
For Lori Hugowind and her husband Gary, it is a story that is simultaneously miraculous and horrendous.
It's almost indescribable. And it is like watching someone die. Simple as that.
For years, Gary's wife Lori lived what appeared to be a normal life. But as incredible as it may seem, 2 years ago, her body was taken hostage by a giant tumor.
It got so big it was getting too hard to function, and it was starting to take over.
Like something out of science fiction, Lori's tumor pushed her weight from 120 pounds to nearly 310 pounds in little more than a year.
It just kept taking more and more blood from the rest of my body.
The strain on her heart, lungs, and other organs was slowly killing her.
The doctor told us that her heart was pumping blood for 3 people.
Unless Lori could find a surgeon willing to battle the tumor, it would kill her. It was simply a matter of time.
Tumors left unoperated will quickly devour a patient, just as this tumor is devouring her.
Lori and her family desperately sought medical help, but were told by more than one surgeon that the procedure to remove the tumor would mean almost certain death.
Doctors don't like to participate in taking care of people they really fundamentally believe are not going to survive.
Without a surgeon willing to attempt the removal of the monstrous growth, Lori's future was bleak.
Here in town, they were teaching me to die. They were teaching me to journal so that I would have something that I wanted to tell Nina when she turned 5, when she turned 16, when she got married.
But Lori would not surrender. She would find a doctor or die trying.
The risk for loss of life in this case was high. Lori Hugowind was dying, and I think she wanted any chance she could have.
The roots of Lori's incredible story stretch back 40 years. When Lori was only 3 months old, her mother noticed a small birthmark on her thigh and a tiny lump on her back.
When I would touch her back a little bit, there was just a little bit of a raise, but it never grew for a long time.
And they took her to the doctor, but nobody was really concerned about it.
Known as a cafe au lait spot, Lori's birthmark was an indication of neurofibromatosis, or NF, an incurable genetic disorder that causes benign tumors to grow on the skin, tissues, and bone.
At that time, I don't think nobody knew that much about it. And as time went on, it just grew a little more and a little more.
Lori recalls the beginning of her lifelong battle with NF.
It started out with just a little mass on my back, and as I got bigger, it got bigger. You know, a 2-piece bathing suit was out of the question.
By high school, Lori had developed numerous benign tumors on her thighs. Doctors were able to remove those, but were reluctant to excise the lump on her back, afraid that it was attached to her spinal cord.
And her parents had been told, oh, don't take it out. You know, she'll be paralyzed. This was not a tumor arising from the spinal cord, but this tumor was all superficial. And for her parents to have been given that kind of information was just tragic.
We did what we thought was right. But like I say, had we had a second opinion, maybe we wouldn't have done it this way.
In 1984, Lori found joy when she married Gary Hugowind. Though her battle with NF tumors raged on, she kept a positive attitude.
She's solid. It's like she has no fear. And I believe that helped her through what she went through.
Lori and Gary wanted a family, but were unable to conceive. After 3 years of trying, they decided to adopt a child. But the growing tumor on Lori's back cast a dark shadow over their future.
I had to change clothes sizes, so that was when we noticed the growth difference, and everything was just changing.
Lori traveled to Ann Arbor, where doctors from the University of Michigan attempted to remove the tumor.
They tried taking off a portion of it, but they were limited as to what they could take off because of the bleeding.
Then in 1996, in the midst of her latest battle with NF, Lori and Gary finally heard some good news. After almost 10 years of waiting, the adoption was finally approved. Lori now had a 6-week-old baby girl and an even greater resolve.
Nina was my reason for going on. She was my life.
By the winter of 1998, tumors had developed on Lori's stomach and right thigh. Below her armpit, another hard mass had grown to the size of a grapefruit. Worse, it was found to be malignant.
I went in and they removed the tumor that was cancer. And it was probably from that point on, I can say it went downhill.
Lori underwent radiation therapy for the cancer, but the treatment created yet another hurdle for her to overcome.
The post-surgical radiation treatments seem to have the opposite of the desired effect.
It wasn't until after the fact that we found out that it was possibly the radiation that triggered the growth of the tumor in the stomach.
Instead of shrinking any residual tumor, the so-called benign portion of the tumor exploded in growth.
The tumor on Lori's stomach began to grow at an alarming rate, swallowing her 120-pound frame and pushing her weight to over 300 pounds in a matter of months.
It was like dragging around another person.
Something, had to be done because it was pretty much taking her life.
As far as anybody helping her or doing anything, they couldn't. They had no clue as to even what to do about it.
While her family searched the internet and worked the phones hunting for a doctor willing to help, Lori struggled to maintain a normal life.
Just having to walk from the living room to the kitchen, I would just be exhausted.
Sometimes it would take us a half hour to get her into the bedroom at night. We had her with a walker, and Gary would hold on to the top part of her because it was getting where she just couldn't move by herself anymore.
Sometimes you just wanted to go outside and just scream.
With Lori's condition getting worse by the day, she desperately searched for a miracle. It came in the form of an article on NF written by Dr. Priscilla Short. Lori contacted Dr. Short and met with her at the University of Chicago hospitals in September of 1999. That meeting forever changed Lori's life.
For my experience, it was the largest NF tumor I've ever seen. Probably one of the largest tumors I've ever seen. I mean, this tumor was robbing her of her blood. And so her heart was having to work extra hard.
Dr. Short referred Lori to the university's renowned plastic and reconstructive surgeon, Dr. McKay McKinnon, who had extensive experience in removing NF tumors.
The sight of Lori was off-putting as a surgeon because my chain of thought reaction is, how can I fix that? And it was daunting, to say the least. My other immediate reaction was that this woman was dying.
Lori's spirit and determination to live won over Dr. McKinnon. Despite his reservations, he agreed to take her case.
This was a woman who strongly wanted to live. And I don't think a surgeon can ever measure that, but he sure likes it on his side.
Never before in medical history had anyone successfully removed a monstrous tumor like the one on Lori. Dr. McKinnon knew he was taking a tremendous chance, but he also believed that Lori's life depended on it.
There are no other therapies that she could have been helped by. She needed to have this tumor off, as simple as that.
He came right out and said, if you know, if you want to live, we got to get rid of this now.
But Dr. McKinnon made sure that Lori and her family understood how high the stakes were.
He says, you have just a short time to live if you do nothing. And he says, if you have the operation, there's a 50-50 chance that you won't make it.
It was a relief because something was going to be done. You knew one way or the other, either it was going to go good, or if it wasn't, then she didn't have to suffer.
I was just so excited to hear that there was an option, because we honestly didn't believe there was.
Dr. McKinnon must quickly assemble a crack surgical team to attempt the removal of the largest tumor in medical history and save Lori from certain death. Lori Hugowind is battling a monster. A 200-pound tumor has engulfed her 120-pound body, and the stakes couldn't be higher. She will fight to live or die trying.
It was a person trying to hang on to life any way possible.
Lori and her family have spent a year searching for a doctor willing to attempt the potentially fatal surgery to remove the tumor. At the world-renowned University of Chicago hospitals, they meet surgeon McKay McKinnon. He agrees to take the case, but makes no guarantees.
This was not an elective operation. Lori Hugowind was dying, and I think she wanted any chance she could have.
Dr. McKinnon will attempt what other surgeons have said is impossible, the successful removal of a 200-pound tumor from a 120-pound patient.
There are more complex medical patients than Lori Hugowind, but I think there are a few more complex surgical patients.
Dr. McKinnon must now assemble a proven team of medical professionals willing to fight an unprecedented opponent.
We knew we were going to be at war for a long time with this tumor, and we needed to be resolved that we were going to overcome it.
Critical to the team's success will be one of the foremost anesthesiologists in the country, Dr. Madeline Kahana.
There is no larger procedure done in this country or anywhere in the world. This was way beyond what is even extraordinary surgery.
Dr. Kahana will face a formidable challenge: how to keep a 300-pound patient alive for what could be 20 grueling hours of surgery, while Lori loses nearly 200 pounds of body weight and literally gallons of blood.
I was concerned that she might die in the operating room and that her daughter would not have a mother.
Another key member of the team is Chief Resident Surgeon Dr. David Song.
I was involved with organizing the team and figuring out what would be needed in the operating room, and definitely was on my mind day and night, and even in my dreams, and figuring out the potential repercussions of surgery, the potential disasters.
Back home in Michigan, Lori and her family focus on the upcoming surgery, scheduled 10 weeks away in January. But as the tumor continues to grow, Lori's physical condition rapidly deteriorates.
It got to be where I couldn't do anything. I wasn't able to function.
She begins to hallucinate.
I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd yell at Gary for sending the firemen home. The house was on fire, I'd say. Why did you send them home?
The tumor was beginning to drain so much blood that even her brain was being affected, which would be the last organ to give up the blood.
Now desperate, the family begs Dr. McKinnon to move up the day of the operation, afraid Lori will die before she can go under the knife.
I think I said yes because I couldn't say no.
With a new date set for December 13th, Lori's medical team works overtime to ensure they'll be ready for the marathon surgery.
It had to be flawless that day. Before Lori went to the operating room, there were some things we needed to do to prepare her for surgery and for the enormous risk that she would take.
One of the most important preoperative tasks is preparing the hospital's blood bank.
We had an extensive discussion with the blood bank because we knew we were going to use massive quantities of blood, and they needed to be prepared for giving us the blood products that we need, which meant that they had to spend extra time actually accumulating blood products.
We're going to have 2 tables, and so we want her on one.
Lori's 200-pound tumor presents many other obstacles for her doctors.
The size of the tumor will require some device in the operating room, either another table or even a hoist to actually try and move it away from her body.
The cava is humongous.
Even determining where to cut the tumor away from Lori's underlying tissue or fascia is a complicated issue.
You can't make heads or tails of where the fascia ends and the mass begins.
And the still growing tumor is straining Lori's vital organs to their limits.
Lori, I thought, was at risk of having acute total heart failure in the operation. And I felt the cardiac team should be prepared to put her on cardiac bypass if her heart failed during the procedure.
But even if they do win the battle and remove the tumor, Lori's doctors know they could still lose the war and their patient's life.
There is a possibility that tumor will be spread to her internal organs and she could die soon after surgery from that.
She said, but she really thought that was her last chance, and if she died, at least she would die trying.
I cried because I said to him, I have nothing else to go for. You know, I mean, it's all I have left.
Finally, the time has come for the surgery. On December 10th, 1999, Lori leaves her husband and daughter at home and is airlifted 172 miles to the University of Chicago hospitals.
We didn't say goodbye. We said, well, I'll see you later.
When they put her in that ambu cab, it was very, very emotional for me. She said, I'll see you in a few days, and I said, yeah, to myself, yeah, I hope I do. But, you know, you just don't know.
I kissed her. I thought that was going to be the last time I'd ever kiss her. I really didn't think she was coming home. I really didn't.
24 hours before her surgery, Lori undergoes a procedure called embolization to hopefully minimize blood loss during her operation.
The blood supply to this tumor is enormous, so that's why she went through several hours today of embolization process to put a catheter inside the aorta and come into the major perforators feeding this tumor and plug them.
With the final preparations for the surgery complete, Dr. McKinnon visits his patient one last time.
How you feeling?
Not better.
You're swollen from the dye that they had to inject.
I'm feeling really confident right now.
Good. Okay. That's a good way to be.
I have to be. Deciding what to do has been such a soul search. What decision to make, the dangers and the risks, but you just gotta do what you feel is right.
Did you talk to your daughter about this?
Somewhat.
Mm-hmm. Where does she think you are?
Well, she thinks I'm on a trip.
Vacation?
Yeah.
And her dad's taking care of her right now?
Yeah. She's with the best person she can be with.
Good.
She's a truly amazing woman, just to get to this point with this tumor and knowing that this could potentially be the last day of her life. There was a lot of mixed emotions in my mind as to what the next 24, 48 hours would bring.
I wish there was an easier way to get rid of this thing, but I think it's just going to take some hard work in the operating room for tomorrow. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it'll take hours. But we'll work hard tomorrow. Get some rest.
Oh, I will.
Okay, we'll see you bright and early.
Okay.
Lori, I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Okay.
I think about how I can get rid of this tumor, how I can keep from getting in trouble, how we can get her through a long day of surgery and not have any complications.
Even after planning for every possible worst-case scenario, Dr. McKinnon knows tomorrow's surgery will be the toughest of his career.
I was scared. I was more anxious than I am at the average major operation. I'll admit that.
At 8 o'clock on the morning of December 13th, 1999, Lori is prepped for the surgery that will either restore her life or end it.
It was very charged. You know, it was a lot of people there. The anesthesia team, the cardiac surgeons were on standby. There were 2 OR beds. There were multiple nurses, OR technical staff. It's sort of a very revved up kind of day, and everyone's full of anticipation.
All right, Lori.
Nice deep breath.
Big breaths. Try and relax. Think about some good, like Christmas dinner, getting home with your girl.
Dr. Kahana administers the anesthesia. During the surgery, she and her team will carefully monitor Lori's breathing and maintain her blood pressure. As soon as Lori is unconscious, Dr. McKinnon prepares for the daunting task ahead.
It seems to get bigger every time I look at her. I keep thinking there's a way around it.
There is.
It's like a mountain.
Straight down.
The team will attempt to remove the tumor in one piece to ensure that no fragments are left behind. Starting on Lori's left side, the plan is to peel it off across her abdomen, then roll her over and cut it from her back.
Okay, we're going to drape if you're ready for that, Lynn.
The battle to remove the giant tumor begins.
We're going to go slow. We're going to try to start up here in the epigastrium, follow it all the way across.
You have a dry lap, please?
The surgeons must carefully navigate the perimeter of the tumor, slicing it from the underlying tissue without cutting the blood vessels feeding it. That could cause a fatal hemorrhage.
Okay, lift up, David. I think we got plenty of firepower here, guys.
They use a device known as an electrocautery to slice through tissue and seal blood vessels.
Now that looks like a giant vessel there. I would clip that.
Okay, clip.
Larger blood vessels are first clamped and then sutured to prevent bleeding.
Now that's a giant vessel there. Don't go low. Don't be too impatient here.
The blood vessels feeding the tumor on Lori's stomach are enormous, as thick as a human thumb.
You see this vessel? This is the umbilicus, and this is a perforator through the abdominal wall to the tumor around the umbilicus, and we're going to try to take that apart. I think the scariest thing for surgeons about the neurofibroma patient tumor, they're not normal vessels, and they don't respond to cauterization, and they don't have muscularity in their walls. Tie, please. David, help me.
Tension mounts when, barely 2 hours into the surgery, Lori begins to hemorrhage.
Just grab it. There's too much bleeding there.
Dr. Kahana works to stabilize her patient. Through 3 different tubes, she's replenishing the 6 pints of blood Lori has already lost. The surgical team must maintain their focus at all times.
I was very concerned that we were not going to be able to remove this tumor without killing her. One false move and a pint of blood would be on the floor in seconds.
Dr. McKinnon and Dr. Kahana fight to keep Lori from bleeding to death as the surgical team continues to cut away the 200-pound tumor. Incredibly, the most dangerous part of her super surgery is yet to come.
This is one of the few surgeries where I truly felt potential impending disaster.
Super surgery continues after these messages.
It's been 8 hours since doctors at the University of Chicago hospitals first began the unprecedented procedure to remove a giant 200-pound tumor from Lori Hugowind, a 42-year-old wife and mother. Incredibly, they are not even halfway through the dangerous operation.
Let me have a clip, please.
Lori's heart has been weakened by the strain of pumping blood to the massive tumor. Her surgeon, McKay McKinnon, has given her only a 50% chance of surviving the surgery.
I have to give patients as much hope as they can reasonably hang on to and give them a realistic expectation. That's great if anybody could hold it, but nobody could, right?
As the team continues to slice away the enormous tumor, they must pull it back and secure it in order to keep cutting.
What we'll do is we'll get the that's more like a lemur.
You want it like this?
Water.
They devise a makeshift hoist to support the weight of the tumor.
Wire cutter, please, here. Good. You got a big enough clamp to hold that together?
Tie it. Yeah.
That's good. Whoa, stop. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. If you tie it...
With a portion of the mass lifted away, Dr. McKinnon sees that the tumor has not affected Lori's vital organs. Though it's good news, Lori is bleeding badly. She has already lost 20 pints of blood, almost 3 times the normal human blood volume.
From a monitoring standpoint, our basic issue was whether she would have extensive bleeding. Certainly there are very large vessels feeding this tumor, but the surgeons are proceeding very carefully and getting each of those vessels as they come about them.
Huge vessel here now. Hemostat ready, please. And go slowly.
10 hours have now passed. Just down the hall from the operating room, Lori's parents try to stay calm, not knowing if they will ever see their daughter alive again.
I've gone into the chapel just about every day since I've been here. Say a word, ask God to be with us.
We got a lot of prayers going for this. A lot of prayers.
172 miles away in Wyoming, Michigan, Lori's husband Gary takes care of their 3-year-old daughter Nina as he anxiously waits for news.
It was very tough because you know the condition that she is in when she's leaving you. You have no idea obviously what the outcome is going to be.
Take time. Stay high. No tumor, it's all vessel.
12 hours pass. This is a very long time for a patient to be in surgery and under anesthesia. But the surgeons keep cutting and suturing. Lori's blood loss continues to rise.
Don't cut. There were 3 of us right there just trying to cut, stop bleeding, cut some more, stop bleeding, and there began to be a question of whether we could just continue to get through it.
Cut it. Cut that.
Incredibly, the team's perseverance pays off. Dr. McKinnon cuts the front portion of the massive tumor away from Lori's stomach, but the most dangerous part of the operation now awaits them. They must turn Lori over to continue cutting the tumor from her back.
She was laying basically on the bed of tumor that was attached to her, and the only way to get it out, in my mind, was to have to flip her prone. Anytime you flip someone in surgery is extremely precarious.
So you don't think you can turn her all the way to the right?
Well, when I turn her to the right, this mass is going to fall onto the table.
Turning Lori is of particular concern to Dr. Kahana, who must maintain Lori's vital signs. Moving her could disturb her breathing tube or dislodge the lifeline supplying Lori with blood.
The most tense times for me were the repositioning times, because under general anesthesia, when you change posture quickly, particularly after this long a procedure and this much blood loss, the body's ability to compensate is significantly changed, and it doesn't do it well at all.
I still think we have a chance to roll her to the right if we dissect this up some more for you.
The doctors must use great caution. One false move and Lori could die.
Now, we want to roll her slowly, if there's such a thing. Are you ready? It's not easy.
I was very nervous at that portion of the operation, and I'm sure Dr. Kahana and Dr. McKinnon were as equally as nervous, if not more than I.
That's a big improvement. But we need to bring her whole body this way. You tell us when we can move again.
I'm ready, but I can't do anything else.
So heavy.
The team struggles to lift the 200-pound mass.
Go. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
That's not bad. That's not too bad.
Lori's vital signs are stable. The repositioning is a success, but a huge portion of the tumor still remains and must be quickly removed or Lori will bleed to death.
All right, let's prep.
Within minutes, Dr. McKinnon and the surgical team prepare to cut the tumor from Lori's back.
What do you guys have in mind to hold her there?
They hope that the huge blood vessels feeding the tumor on her abdomen will not be found here.
Some of the vessels were extraordinary there, and it certainly led us to think that this was as big as it got.
Suck. You gotta suck, David. Suck on it. It's too wet.
But they are quickly discouraged to find a seemingly infinite supply of the same oversized vessels.
The blood loss was reaching levels that I had not encountered before. It was fed by so many vessels as big as your thumb that it never stopped, and I really felt like we were going to have to abort the case or she wouldn't survive it.
What the hell? Now what's bleeding? Hemostat. Right angle. Scissor. Sponge. Come on, quick.
Forceps.
Right angle. Watch out. We got a big bleeding here. Tie. So. That was ugly. That was big and ugly.
Shockingly, Lori has lost almost 40 pints of blood, 5 times the amount in a normal human body. Dr. McKinnon worries about the strain on Lori's vital organs and contemplates stopping the dangerous operation.
For a surgeon, it's a terrible defeat. It's a defeat of what you're there for, the premise that you're there to help a patient.
Lori's parents pray for a miracle.
I mean, what else can we do? Our kids are our life. We don't have nothing but our family.
Will her doctors decide to continue even at the risk of Lori bleeding to death? Or will Dr. McKinnon admit defeat and abort the surgery? Either way, Lori's life now hangs in the balance.
It's now been 16 hours since surgeons began removing Lori Hogowin's 200-pound tumor. But now there's a problem. Her doctors face a decision that could determine if Lori lives or dies.
Watch out, we got a big lady here. Hemostat, another one. Sponge, come on, quick.
Though 75% of the gigantic tumor has been cut away, Lori has also lost more than 40 pints of blood. That's almost 5 times the amount in a normal human body.
Hemostat.
She was prepared for a major blood loss, but this exceeded our expectations, and I was beginning to get worried that the blood bank would not have sufficient blood.
New tip, new tip.
Suck. Right angle, please. Tie. So.
Lori's survival was certainly in the balance. We were taking this tumor off like a ribbon at the level of the spine, and that proved to be just impossible. So I changed the plan.
To prevent Lori from bleeding to death, Dr. McKinnon decides to cut around a small but particularly bloody portion of the tumor, located dangerously close to her spine. This tumor fragment will be removed at a future surgery.
I need her big clip in a moment. Just to make sure she stays intubated.
2 more anxious hours pass, then a breakthrough. After 18 harrowing hours of surgery, the battle is finally over.
The tumor was liberated from Lori's body, I remember, about 12:30 in the morning.
That's a lot of tumor, you know, it's about 3 feet of tumor.
Though exhausted, Dr. McKinnon and his team have made medical history, successfully removing the largest tumor ever recorded.
Well, I was grateful, very grateful. I've never run a marathon, but that's about as close as I want to get, I think.
Miraculously, Lori has survived the landmark surgery. By the end of the operation, she had lost over 50 pints of blood, 6 times what circulates in the average person's body.
We just feel that God is, I mean, the doctor has answered our prayers, but so has God.
We had our Christmas. This is our Christmas right here. This is our Christmas.
Though Lori has beaten the odds, she is far from out of danger. Over 40% of her body is an open wound and vulnerable to infection. She could suddenly hemorrhage from her many sutured blood vessels, or the tumor could prove malignant, and she faces a painful series of skin graft operations to close the wound.
We know that she's not out of the woods yet, but she's on the upswing, and that's the important thing.
2 days after her historic surgery, Lori rests in the intensive care unit. Though her 98-pound body is still weak, her spirit has never been stronger.
To go home, that's my big plan. They haven't really set a date yet, and I don't know, I haven't really asked for one yet either.
But a difficult journey still awaits Lori.
She had a long road yet to hoe because she still had 40% of her skin that had to be replaced, so she had become a burn patient equivalent, giving up that tumor mass. And a 40% burn patient also has a high mortality.
Lori, I'm about to start your cocktail here.
Just 1 week after her epic surgery, Lori is back in the OR to receive her first skin graft.
Today we're trying to cover a wound that occupies about 40% of her body from the previous removal of all this tumor.
But Lori is apprehensive about the procedure.
The first time we went back to the operating room to do her first skin graft, she said to me, "I'm afraid for the first time."
Dr. McKinnon creates temporary grafts from cadaver skin. These strips of skin are flattened and punched with holes to mesh with Lori's tissue. To fix them in place, doctors staple the grafts together. In the coming weeks, these temporary grafts will be replaced with permanent grafts using skin taken from Lori's own legs.
Should we let them see you without your hat?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
It's not so cold.
No, it's not so cold down here.
Yeah.
After 5 painful skin graft surgeries, Lori's wound is finally closed, and the residual tumor located near her spine has been removed.
All right there. there.
But we did it again, and again, and again, until her skin was closed. And she did well each and every time. She didn't complain, and burn wound closure hurts.
In the hospital's pathology lab, technicians complete their analysis of Lori's 200-pound tumor.
I think they found a wheelbarrow to take it upstairs to the pathology department. They did many specimen examinations of the tumor itself, and we were prepared for them to report some of it having malignant cells, but incredibly, none of it did.
With the threat of cancer gone, Lori tackles a strenuous physical therapy program to rebuild her weakened 98-pound body.
It's difficult for her even to learn to walk again, and she's fearful that she may fall, and her body is very stiff, but she's very anxious to go home, and I think we should give her a chance to try and see how it goes. Don't try to do too much, but I know you're excited about seeing your daughter.
Yeah.
Good. Does she know you're coming today?
Yep, yep. She told her she was going on a trip. Yeah, when she came here.
I remember.
So
yeah.
she'll be real
You got a lot of
surprised.
explaining to do, right?
Yeah.
Where's your tummy? Yeah, really.
Yeah.
You got a lot of explaining to do.
That's right. She looks so good standing. Hold it.
She delights everybody around her because of her just joy.
Don't look down.
8 weeks after being airlifted to the University of Chicago hospitals for a surgery that made medical history, Lori is returning home 200 pounds lighter.
It gives you a whole new perspective. It makes you appreciate people. It makes you appreciate the doctors, your family, everyone. And it just gives you such a good feeling.
Smile pretty.
Although Lori's tumor is gone, the danger that it could return is ever present.
These tumors have growth patterns that are somewhat unpredictable. We always caution patients that there may be some tumor regrowth.
I do not like that Sam I am. Do you like me next? I do not.
3 hours after leaving Chicago, Lori rejoins her grateful husband Gary and their 3-year-old daughter Nina.
It's like a whole new world to us now. It was a miracle. It was a Christmas miracle. Everybody says that, and that's what it was.
In the months ahead, Lori must move cautiously as her wounds slowly heal, and she must come to terms with the emotional scars left by the 200-pound tumor which once held her hostage.
It took her a long time, even after she was home, to realize that that tumor wasn't there. Psychologically, that tumor was still there.
Lori and her family's life slowly returns to normal. Just 2 years after her groundbreaking procedure, she has undergone a complete transformation. Incredibly, this is Lori Hugewind today.
Lori looked like a new person. She wasn't the same gaunt, fragile human that I met that day in the hospital. She had gained 25 or 30 pounds by then, and she had a face that didn't look like it had been eaten away by cancer. Life had returned to normal, and home was good.
It's like a whole new life. I mean, we're doing things that we've never done before, and it's fun. I mean, we're having a great time.
We're enjoying things together. We really have been enjoying every day. We try to do everything from start to finish.
But in the fall of 2001, there is an ominous development. Lori finds a new growth and must face the possibility that her monstrous tumor has returned. Has Lori's string of miracles finally run out? 42-year-old wife and mother Lori Hugewind has challenged death and won. Incredibly, just 2 years ago, Lori looked like this as her surgeons fought to remove a giant 200-pound tumor from her 120-pound body. She risked the dangerous super surgery and has been granted a new lease on life.
It's been real nice to be able to be a mom again. It really makes you appreciate every day when you wake up, knowing what you went through.
But while Lori is thankful for her new life, she and her family are haunted by the fear that new tumors could develop at any time.
It's never out of our minds. You know, there is always a chance that this possibly come back.
Less than 2 years after her surgery, Lori discovers a small growth on her abdomen.
I had a small cyst, and I was kind of nervous about it. I was probably a little more nervous than I needed to have been.
On November 16th, 2001, Lori returns to the University of Chicago hospitals for an examination by Dr. McKinnon.
How are you?
Good.
Nice to see you.
You
Sit
too.
down. Thanks for listening.
Like the victors of a hard-won battle, they share a special bond. But today, they hope their enemy is less daunting.
It does not look like neurofibromatosis, but it could be. If it is, it's extremely isolated and not a sign that she's going to have a bigger tumor or a big problem like she had before.
Dr. McKinnon performs an outpatient procedure to remove the small cyst. Although this surgery isn't serious, Lori knows she must never ignore any growth, no matter how small or seemingly benign.
We'll still see her every 6 months for the foreseeable future, and I think that Lori's just happy to have a normal life, and I think that the chances are remote of her having a major recurrence of this tumor.
He looks fabulous. Oh, and you're right, I would have walked right past. Yeah. You look great too.
Oh. I can actually hug you.
I know it. Well, and I don't blow over in the wind. You know, like...
Lori went through some test of human spirit that hopefully most of us won't ever have to do. And she did it with grace and with courage.
Lori's courageous decision to allow her story to be told to the world was done in order to give hope to others suffering from neurofibromatosis.
We had such a hard time finding a doctor. She wanted somebody out there to know if they had this problem that there was help.
I continue to get calls from patients who have far smaller tumors which have been left unoperated for whatever reason. So I hope that Lori is an exclamation point to the surgical world that there is a lot of benefit to be gained from removal of all NF tumors that can be removed, and we think they probably all can be removed.
You guys see the canoe? You're going to be making? You guys got to cut out a canoe.
Today, Lori relishes the simple joys in life, like spending quality time with her family. Time she never dreamed she would ever have.
I'm very thankful for what everybody had done. And I don't wake up every day and think, oh no, is there a new tumor coming or is something grown? We just wake up every day and think, thank you for another day and go on.
Purple. Uh-oh, Daddy. You have to go here.
No way. I don't really see her as a hero. I see her as a survivor, and a very tough survivor.
I went from living a great life to having a really bad spell to living a great life again.
In so many ways, Lori's successful battle against her tumor reflects the courage and determination that truly defines the human spirit. For Super Surgery, I'm Dr. Steve Salvatore. Thanks for joining us.